Hello, summer is here. School vacations have started, and with the long weekends looming, the highways and the skies are going to be jammed. Therefore, we thought that it would be timely to do a program about travel when you have diabetes, traveling along with you. I am Chuck.
And I'm Teresa.
And I'm Chris. And truly welcome to our program, Takingdiabetesheadon.com. Really, we need to start with air travel. I think that's the most important thing. What do you guys think?
I agree. A lot of people are doing it.
Absolutely. What's the one piece of advice that you give somebody with air travel?
Well, that's easy. Whether you're traveling within the country or you're going abroad, the one crucial advice is this. Keep your medications and your supplies with you and not with the checked luggage.
That's true.
Simple as this is, you will be surprised at how often this is ignored. Teresa, you recently flew to Europe, and I hear you had a close encounter of the worst kind there.
Oh my.
Can you please share that with our viewers?
Sure. It was the worst. Well, I've traveled a lot, and this is the first time. I always carry my supplies with me.
Remember, she goes on vacation with her girlfriend once a year.
Once a year,
and
I
she's
do.
a nurse, so that's I never really worry too much. But Teresa,
Oh my gosh. So I've traveled quite a bit, and with Chris and all that. So first time my luggage actually got lost. And I was missing my luggage for 3 to 4 days. Not fun.
oh no, there's more, Teresa.
No, so I was glad I carried my supplies, because if I didn't have my supplies with me, it would have been lost for 3 to 4 days. And the other thing, as much as I've traveled, my purse was pickpocketed, if you want to call that, and they stole my wallet and they stole my machine.
Oh, let's tell the story. I'm at breakfast and I get this phone call and I'm looking at the phone and it comes over with FaceTime. And it's not Teresa's phone. And I see her and there's tears coming.
Oh, that's awful. You fear the worst.
And I'm like, oh, okay, so what happened here, Teresa? So tell them.
So I told them my stuff got stolen. And I don't know why they took my machine, but it's in a big black case, so maybe they thought money
It was
was
a
in
phone,
it.
maybe.
A phone or anything. So they took it, and it was just like,
you lost your
my machine,
meter?
my meter, everything in there.
The cute thing,
So I
Dr.
was just
Cannon,
like,
though?
but not my passport. So that was a good
Thank
thing. I got.
goodness.
I know.
Here's what they get, though. They get a meter with a bloody tissue on it because she uses she's got like connect the dots on this
tissue.
tissue,
I do.
and then she has all the used strips, so they not only have her DNA but they have the connect the
All
dots.
kidding aside, if you depend on that to dose yourself, it's really a big problem.
Truly, it's really scary, and I think that Teresa, I know we're making fun of it now, and of course you didn't wear the backpack on the front like I told you to do, but maybe that's next time. That's for the next show. But let's move back on the TSA security. What it really is the TSA looking for?
Well, that's where our journeys start. And there are some good things here. It is no longer necessary to get a letter from your provider stating that you're a patient with diabetes and that you're carrying insulins, pens, testing supplies, and other paraphernalia. But you never know when you're going to run into an overzealous officer.
Oh, yeah,
so
Teresa.
it's good idea to have that with you, a letter of some sort.
Teresa and I understand that one.
Yeah, we'll go into that a little later. But you know what? The TSA does make exceptions for the 5.4 fluid, the ounces that you can carry. Because they know as long as you have an unopened insulin bottle, they'll allow the frozen ice packs. So that way you can at least carry it. Just make sure it's frozen.
And Teresa's learned the hard way. It needs to be frozen, right, Teresa?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And then make sure you keep all your containers in the original package with the labels on it. And if you can, ask your pharmacist to print all the labels.
They'll
so
be
they
happy
can see
to do it,
Yeah,
yes.
definitely.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
not a hard thing to do.
Well, now everyone's gone high tech, and it's a good idea to have a medical ID bracelet with some twists that come with it. Have either one of you heard about this watch for patients with diabetes?
I did some research, and there's if you go to epill.com, there's this nice little watch that has 12 medical alarms on it, and it's a little alert watch. It's called the CADEX watch, CADEX watch, and it's kind of a medical alert watch alarm all in one, and it's really neat. It's like a clever personal assistant device. It's not the kind of watch like I have, which is the iWatch, but it's one of the older watches, but it actually is nice. I think it's really one of the better watches I've seen. And it tells you when to take your pills, when to take your insulin. It says diabetes on it, and it has a little alert button. There's a lot of neat things. It comes in pediatric as well as an adult version. And I think really that's something that you might want to look into. Teresa doesn't have her medical alert bracelet on right now, I see, but maybe you can get a KDEX watch. But epill.com is where I found it. I know that I knew we were going to talk about it, so I looked at it. And truly, to go back, other than having your bracelet and all that stuff, what else needs to be packed aboard for a flight?
Well, there's actually two things that should be. Your glucose tablets, and if you're on insulin, your glucagon. That's very, very important. Yes. So you can, when you're traveling with someone, you should tell your friend, your family member where you put your glucagon at. And if you're by yourself, tell the flight attendant so they know, just in case you're having a hypoglycemia, and they know where to look.
And believe it or not, Teresa and I have helped a lot of people on air flights and a lot of diabetic individuals with diabetes. So one of the biggest things, we got a thank you letter from Air France when we were going to India, I think is where we were, and we helped somebody and they...
Just thank you, no free flights?
No free flights.
No free flights.
It's like kind of like there's no free meal in life, there's no free nothing in life.
But at least they thanked you.
True.
So.
Yes, and another thing is pack food. Because you know airline food, you know how airline food, I'm not going to even go into that. So just in case you don't want to eat the airline food, you can carry good food such as cheese, crackers, a small sandwich, salad with chicken, a protein bar, chips, something. Chips is not the best, but just something very simple. Cheese sticks are also good snacks
I mean, it's
with
not
you.
the best. That's what she has in the car door in my car.
No. It's tough.
It's food. That's what it is.
Well, how about timing of food and taking insulin shots on a flight?
I think that's really important. I think really you should stick to your regular schedule as if you're at home. That's something that Teresa always does. And I don't ever change the time on either your pump, on your meter. That's something that Teresa always does, because I always say, what time is it at home? What time is it at home? Because she keeps everything the same. And I think that's important. And then between meals, because sometimes we've been on flights where you get 3 meals and then snacks, but really you should have about 4 to 5 hours between those major meals. And stick to your schedule at home the best you can, everybody.
And actually, I know people who carry 2 watches. The one they keep adjusting, and the one they don't touch.
Right, because they need a time to know what time it is there.
Yeah.
So what about the timing the meal insulin when you eat on a plane and the meal itself?
That's very important because one really never quite knows the carb content of what you're going to get.
True.
So it's advisable to take the meal insulin after the meal arrives, so you sort of can guesstimate the dose better. And since there is not much physical activity except watching movies or reading or sleeping, it's always a good idea to slightly decrease the dose of the rapid-acting meal insulin that you take after a meal.
Absolutely. And what about patients on an insulin pump? Is there something that they need to do different?
Well, there is not a major problem, and for most patients who are not that sensitive to insulin, this is not an issue. However, this becomes a very important issue for patients with type 1 diabetes and who are very sensitive to even minor changes in the dosing. And those things happen especially when you're taking off and when you're landing. And it's recommended that you temporarily suspend the basal rate during takeoff.
And why is that?
Until you reach cruising altitude. And the rationale for this has to do with the atmospheric pressure. When the atmospheric pressure decreases as you are taking off, what happens is bubbles form in the insulin cartridge, and these bubbles can displace the insulin in the pump and push a little more and deliver a little more than you intended.
Wow.
So this doesn't happen to a matter that matters. However, it can happen during takeoffs. So many people say until that happens, maybe 20 minutes, suspend the basal rate and then get it going.
So people that are real sensitive.
Very sensitive.
Or children maybe.
Very children or very
Okay.
thin individuals or people with renal disease. This is not a major issue for most people with a pump, as you know. And the reverse is true when you're landing. So once you are landing, the pressure changes and you just does the opposite. So it's important to realize that if you forget to turn back the basal rate, you will be in trouble. So if you do this, be sure when the pilot announces it's safe to walk about in the cabin, it's also safe to restart your pump.
Wow.
But you know, when I'm on a long flight, since I'm so just lay there, watch movies and not moving, I always increase my basal just a little bit because I'm not as active.
Yeah, and you know,
And
that's
always
it's
something to
interesting.
think about.
But sometimes we got to think about increasing your basal, those little air bubbles, all those type of things. You know, we've had some issues here and there, as has everybody. You know, the good thing is we're honest with our issues. But I think that's interesting what Dr. Cannon was saying. And how about international trips such as major changes in time zones, those type of things? Does east going to west make a difference? Is there any big blood swing?
There is no consistent explanation, but it has been well reported that with changes in the sleep-wake pattern and in the time zone, there can be ups or downs in the blood glucose level. Now, does this mean you should get obsessive? Of course not. You got to be prepared for minor fluxes. So don't get obsessive monitoring the blood glucose constantly during a flight. I tell my patients, do as you would do at home before meals. And instead of calling this breakfast lunch, because breakfast in New York is not the same in Spain.
True.
So what you do is you call them meal number 1, 2, and 3. And do what you do. Check the blood sugar, do your plans, and use the meal insulin a little after the meal has arrived.
And that makes a lot of sense, Teresa. Remember, it seems like they're always feeding us on a flight, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
You must be traveling first class.
No, we don't.
Or business class.
I think we're last class.
You're lucky if they don't drag us out of the cabin.
The only thing that travels better than us is our luggage.
So let's summarize the checklist when you travel. It's medications, snack, testing supplies, devices such as meters and strips, prescription labels, medical ID, a letter from your primary care physician if you want, and contact information.
Very important.
True.
So when I travel, I recommend having a backup meter, just like when mine got stolen. I had
Thank
another
God.
one, thank God.
The money wasn't important, but the meter
The
was.
meter was,
Very much
yes.
so.
So definitely. And if you're planning to a long trip or overseas trip, bring extra supplies, add extra medicines there, just in case your flight gets delayed or anything else. You have that.
It's hard to overnight it there.
Yes. And then if you have a pump, have extra supplies, because what if your pump breaks?
We've
bring
had
it-
that before.
Yes,
haven't
we have, and we had to play.
Thank
to
God
get
it was
to-
in San Diego, and actually we called somebody and they overnighted us a
one?
pump because
Right.
we played with super glue and duct tape. Do you
Oh,
remember that?
Yes, I remember that.
We stopped at Target, and Target thought we were MacGyver. MacGyver 1 and MacGyver 2.
So you can have, if you're going overseas or someplace long, you can get a loaner pump so you have a backup pump, and they cost approximately about $50 for 90 days. Different companies, different prices. And then you should have syringes or insulin pens for your meals and long acting, just in case your pump fails.
This is how long we've been doing this. Do you remember the Desatronic where you had 2 pumps?
Right.
Yeah, a long time.
And most people forget that they should take a basal and a bolus pen
Exactly.
in case
Your pump
something
breaks.
happens.
That's right.
And one good thing to remember is why doesn't somebody think of having a kiosk in the airport?
That would be
just
good.
like they have DVDs and other supplies for audio and stuff.
So anyone out there, if you'll do that, and remember the credit goes to Dr. C.R. Cannon.
And they should be able to say, here is a loaner. People don't mind charging it. You go crazy when you lose your stuff.
And remember, you could send me the proceeds in,
There you go.
perpetuity, I think is what that's called, right?
And then the other thing I want to make a mention, even with the extra supplies, if you have a sensor, bring the sensor, because sometimes what if something breaks, or the sensor doesn't work and you have to insert a new side, or your pump comes out. You need extra supplies just in case, because you're not going to have them
We have that
normally.
problem here at home. Could you imagine when we're overseas? And you always bring everything
Right, so
extra.
And that's
definitely,
good.
definitely.
And we've been so far talking about air travel. Let's turn to driving trips, 4th of July weekend, so people are driving. Chris and Teresa, I hear you guys go on trips to California all the time. Can you comment on some experiences?
I think we one time alluded to the fact that when we were coming back, Teresa happened to be on that Hawaiian food She really liked Hawaiian food, and so she was used to what she ate here in Las Vegas. We stopped at California. Everything looked the same, but this was Teresa with carb counting. She looked in it, and it looked like this, but it was about the same. It was about the same, but they had wet cabbage, and that wet cabbage weighed it down a little. There wasn't as much rice. So midway between there and Las Vegas, we decided to have a super low blood sugar, and of course, we weren't traveling with glucagon. So we had that problem, and Teresa was going to kill me because I'm dead when I get home tonight. Sometimes when we go on driving trips, Teresa sometimes will go high, and Teresa gets a little car sick. So when she gets a little nausea or vomiting, because of that, I'm thinking of ketones, and sometimes blood sugar's high. So we have to really be careful with that. And sometimes Teresa's not like everybody else. So if I say I'm going to eat at the next stop, Teresa may not be hungry at the next stop, so we got to keep going. And before we get to the next stop, she might say, I need to eat now. And that's Teresa. I told you I'm going to be dead on the way home. So
you are in the medical profession. Yeah. Just imagine somebody who's traveling and doesn't have the background.
It happens to people all the time.
Teresa, do you want to add anything about car travel? Anything folks should remember?
Well, to me, when I travel, yes, in a car, my sugars do go higher, so I have to increase my basal because I'm not active. Because my insulin is based a lot on activity. Because I have basal rates when I sit around, when I walk around, just a normal day. You're right. So when I'm in the car, I increase my basal rate.
Because you're inactive.
Because I'm inactive and I just sit there in the car.
And recently we also had a trip, a camping trip when we were with Teresa's folks, and we were doing some different things, walking and doing stuff. Well, sometimes this is what her parents had forgotten over the years, is when Teresa wants to eat or needs to eat, it's different than everyone else's schedule. And that's something that they learned, and her dad's like, my God, my child, why don't you go ahead and test? Why don't you do it before so I can eat? So mom and dad wanted to eat, and Teresa didn't, or Teresa needed to eat now, and they weren't there. And so Teresa always prepares for this, but the parents get frustrated, as does husband sometimes.
But you see, it's not all about her. It's all about her blood sugar.
Yeah, it is. And it's wonderful. You know, I say that with a absolutely loving heart as I'm getting the glaring eye.
We understand. So once you reach your destination, remember, patients should remember that things are not going to go perfect for 48 hours. So monitoring is crucial. Diabetes never takes a vacation. There is no getting away from that. So monitoring and adjusting, they'll follow you wherever you go. And if once you reach there, look for good restaurants where you can eat healthy, get your exercise with long walks. Also remember, you might have taken the glucose tablets in your purse, but if you don't take your purse with you and you're walking, that's exercise. You're likely to drop your blood sugar. So keep those glucose tablets very close to you. And if you're at a beach, please protect your feet by wearing closed-toe shoes, and examine the feet often for cuts and wounds. And there are all kinds of critters in the ocean. Remember, always carry a bottle of water. Glucose pills and bottle of water, be hydrated.
Absolutely.
But can I just say one thing about, we talked about having a letter from a doctor. So me and Chris was traveling to Paris one time, and they went through my diabetes supplies, and they kept going, and they didn't understand
what it was,
because this is way back then.
It's
and they didn't know it was French. They didn't understand the prescriptions I had, nothing. And then finally they said, doctor note. You know, they're like, doctor or something. I don't remember exactly, but figured
you
out.
Knew what they were.
So I gave them a letter, and they're like, okay.
And it was almost an international incident because her husband was a little upset at the time.
But you should have seen Chris. He was trying to stay away. He's like, I don't know her. That's what he was claiming.
That's because she tries to go through all those TSA without.
I think she could have handled it better without you.
I know.
Yeah, I all I need is the Xanax, and I'll be okay. So really, how about cruises? Is there something?
Oh, cruises. What can you say about cruises except the food? The temptation, major temptation, is the food and the buffets. So people binge. They're on generous eating binge.
Absolutely.
So message is sample. Don't deprive yourself. Sample a little bit of everything. Eat small amounts, frequent meals, rather than indulging in 2 huge meals. And all of us know when you come back from a cruise, you're returning with more than your luggage that you're pulling.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's why I'm very cautious about going on pumps, plus being seasick. But that's very, very
So Teresa don't like cruises for that reason.
For those 2 reasons.
She's like, look, these jeans don't fit the same anymore.
Definitely.
So truly, we've come to the end of our program tonight, and I think this is interesting and all inspired by you traveling all the time, young man. But once again, truly having diabetes should not limit your ability to have fun on vacations. Diabetes is a can-do disease process, so really, truly plan a trip, fly or drive, but remember that while taking a vacation, your diabetes never is taking a vacation. You never get a vacation from this thing called diabetes. And thanks truly for watching. I'm Chris.
I'm Chuck.
And I'm Teresa. Please don't forget to give us your feedback. And please like, comment, and subscribe. We love hearing from you, so please feel free to email us. And don't forget to visit us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, as well as our website. Thank you.